Fab4 Expression presents the Unapologetically Reborn podcast. The Unapologetically Reborn podcast is intended for informational, educational, and inspirational purposes only. The content shared is based on personal experiences, reflections, and general knowledge related to personal growth, trauma, identity, and emotional well-being. This podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health care, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapist-client, medical, or professional relationship. Some topics discussed may include trauma, emotional distress, or sensitive life experiences. Listener discretion is advised. If you find that any content is triggering or overwhelming, please consider pausing the episode and seeking support from a qualified mental health professional. If you are currently experiencing a mental health crisis or need immediate assistance, please contact a licensed professional, call your local emergency services, or reach out to a crisis support hotline in your area. Please feel free to download the free workbook correlating to this podcast by going to www.unapologeticallyreborn.com.
Hi, welcome to Unapologetically Reborn. My name is Alicia Lynch.
I'm Cody. Hi.
I hope everybody's doing well after the storm.
Yeah, it was so cold. I'm sick of this winter.
I think we all are. We got 20 inches of snow over here in Eau Claire.
Yeah, Green Bay got 36.
Bear with me, I've been sick for 3 days.
Oh.
Shoveling and all this fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping not to get sick.
Yeah. So hopefully we can do this short and sweet. Today's topic, why do I feel like two different people? Understanding the shift, the switch, and how to take back control. You ever feel like there's two versions of you that don't agree with each other?
Sometimes.
Like one part of you wants to open up, connect, be honest, be yourself. Then almost immediately another part of you steps in and says, be careful, don't say too much, pull back. Depending on the moment, a different version of you wins. So sometimes you walk away from a situation thinking, why did I act like that? That wasn't even like me. Other times you know exactly who you are, what you feel, what you want to say. But when it actually matters, you can't access it. So it's like it leaves you feeling like, I don't even know who I am sometimes.
Yeah, it's not just confusing, it actually makes you question yourself.
Exactly. But what if the problem isn't that you don't know who you are? What if it's that different parts of you are trying to lead at the same time? Bear with me, but this is what we're talking about today. Let's slow this down because it doesn't show up in like obvious ways. It shows up in small moments that don't seem like a big deal at first until later. When you're sitting there thinking, why did I do that? So let's look at the conversation. So you go into a conversation, you feel good, you're calm, you're clear, you feel like yourself. You're thinking, I'm just going to be honest. At first you're honest, but then something small happens. Maybe a shift in somebody's tone. A response feels off, feels different. And right there, something in you changes. You start thinking more than you're speaking. You hold back. You second guess. And instead of saying what you meant to say, you say less, or you say nothing at all. Later you sit there and you think, why didn't I just say it?
And that's the weird part, because you had it in your head this whole time.
Exactly. It's not that you didn't know what to say. It's like it's almost like you lost access to it. Let's look at over-explaining. I'm good at this one. For some people, it's the opposite. You start explaining something, at first it's normal, but then the same shift happens, and suddenly you can't stop talking. You start explaining more. You start repeating yourself. It's like you're trying to make sure that everything's okay and somebody understands you.
That's me. I can admit it.
Later, you sit and you're kind of embarrassed and you think to yourself, like, why did I say all that?
Almost like you're trying to fix something that hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. Or maybe it shows up like this. You feel close to someone, you're connected, you're comfortable. When something small happens, suddenly you feel different. It's like you pull back, you create distance. You tell yourself, maybe I just don't feel the same anymore. But if you're honest, you did feel the same. Or a text message. Sometimes this doesn't even happen face to face. It happens as something as simple as a text. You're talking to someone. Everything's normal. You're relaxed. You're being yourself. And then they stop responding. Not forever, not dramatically, just longer than usual. And then right there, something changes. And one part of you says, they're probably just busy. Another part of you thinks, something's off. Did I say something wrong? Why haven't they answered? Now both versions are active. You pull back. You act different. You overthink. Later they respond, everything is fine, and now you're thinking, why did I act like that?
That one hits because nothing actually happened.
Exactly. Nothing changed externally, but something changed internally. So let's talk about the most important part of this, the shift. Because everything we just described comes back at that moment. The shift is when you stop feeling like yourself. It's subtle, but you can feel like your thoughts change, your energy changes, your reactions change.
So it's so pretty much it's the turning point.
Exactly. It's the moment you lose access to one version of yourself and another version takes over. Why it happens? Your brain is constantly asking one question. We've discussed this. Am I okay? Not logically, but automatically. And based on that answer, it decides which version of you shows up. If things feel okay, you get access to like thinking clearly, clear communication, you're calm, your normal self. If something feels off, you get access to protective responses, overthinking, pulling back, shutting down.
So it's not that you're changing, it's your brain switching modes.
Exactly.
Who knew?
Yeah, it's not that you changed. It's that your brain changed what version of you has access into what. So let's look at something else. Maybe you snapped at someone. Or you suddenly felt small and insecure in a situation where you normally felt confident. And afterward you think, that didn't feel like me. Or maybe you feel like there's two different versions of you. One version is strong, capable, driven, logical. Another version feels emotional, reactive, insecure, maybe even younger somehow. Some days you're calm and confident. Other days a completely different version of you shows up, and it leaves you wondering, why do I feel like two different people? Today we're going to talk about why that happens. Imagine your brain. So let's take a look at neuroscience for a second, as we'll get to the boring part and get that done. Imagine your brain like a house with two floors. Upstairs is your thinking brain. Downstairs is your survival brain. Most of the time, we like to believe we're living upstairs, where we're calm, we're logical, we're rational. But when something stressful happens, the brain can suddenly run downstairs and let the survival brain take over the house. When this happens, you might not react like the version of yourself that you recognize. So downstairs in the brain lives something called the amygdala. This is the survival brain. Think of your amygdala as a smoke detector for like danger. Its job is to constantly scan your environment looking for anything that resembles a threat. But here's the interesting part. The amygdala doesn't only detect actual danger. It detects familiar emotional patterns. So if someone grew up around conflict, criticism, unpredictability, emotional chaos, the amygdala becomes extremely good at noticing even subtle signals that resemble these experiences, such as a tone of voice, a facial expression, a disagreement. When this happens, the brain can react instantly, so your body prepares for survival. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten. Suddenly a different version of you shows up. Now upstairs in the brain lives the thinking brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex. This is the part responsible for things like your reasoning, perspective, emotional regulation, self-awareness. When the prefrontal cortex is active, you feel like your present day self. This is the version of you that can pause and think. The version that can say, I can handle this. This isn't a big deal. I don't need to react right now. But when the amygdala activates strongly, something interesting happens. The brain shifts control downstairs. Your thinking brain gets quieter. Your survival brain gets louder. And this is why sometimes you react emotionally and only later you think, why did I react like that?
This is why you're the smart one out of this whole group.
No.
Yes.
Not. I don't know why you continuously say that. I'm just somebody that's into neuroscience, that's all. So, emotional time travel. This is another fascinating piece. The brain stores emotional memories differently than regular memories. Emotionally intense experiences get stored with strong sensory signals. So when something in the present reminds the brain of a past experience, the nervous system can react as if the past is happening again. Some psychologists call this emotional time travel. Your body's in the present, but your emotional brain is reacting to something from the past. And in this moment, it can feel like a different version of you has taken control. The truth about the two versions of you. Excuse me, my eyes itch. Here's the important thing to understand. The different version of you is not a flaw. It's an adaptation, which we've discussed. At some point in your life, your brain learned ways to respond to situations in order to protect you. Those responses became part of your nervous system. But over time, as life changes, these same protective responses may start showing up in situations where they're no longer needed. That can make people feel divided between the person that they were when they were adapting and the person that they are becoming. Okay, so why does this happen for some people more than others? Now here's something really important. Some people feel this occasionally and some people feel this all of the time.
Yeah, like some people notice everything.
Exactly. And the differences matter because the shift happens in everyone. But for some people it happens faster, more often, feels stronger. Think of it like this. Some people need something obvious to feel off. Others notice it immediately. A tone, a pause, a change in energy, and their brain reacts right away. And that's because over time, your brain learns what to pay attention to. If you've ever been in an environment where small changes mattered, things felt unpredictable, or you had to read situations quickly, your brain learns pay attention early.
So it's trying to stay ahead of something.
Exactly. Not waiting for something to go wrong, but trying to catch it before it does. You're not reacting too much. You're reacting earlier than most people. The feeling. This is the part people don't talk about enough. It doesn't just feel confusing. It feels unsettling. It feels like I wasn't myself. It feels like something shifts and suddenly your thoughts feel different. Your words don't come the same. Your energy changes. And you can feel it happening, but you just don't know how to stop it. It's like you know who you are, but you can't reach that version. And over time, that turns into something's wrong with me.
Yeah, like you don't trust yourself.
Exactly. But the truth is, you're not unstable. You're just in something called a different state. So let's talk about the switch pattern. This doesn't just happen randomly. It follows a pattern. So amuse me for a minute. I call it the switch pattern. S is the subtle shift. Something small changes. W, withdrawal of access. You lose access to calm you. I, your internal story. Your brain starts guessing what's wrong. T, the takeover. A different version steps in. C, changed behavior. You act differently. H, hindsight confusion. Later, you ask yourself, why did I do that?
The last part, that's where people get stuck.
Exactly.
I'm one of them.
That's when calm comes back to you. That's when your shift happens. It's not random. Your brain actually changes how it's functioning in that very moment.
It's not just a feeling, it's something happening physically.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Your brain has an alarm system that activates really quickly. When it's turned on, your ability to think clearly turns down. So now instead of responding the way that you planned, you're reacting from a different part of your brain.
And that explains why it's so automatic.
Exactly. Because your brain is pulling from patterns that it already knows instead of creating a new response in the moment. So one of the biggest reasons people feel like two different people is because they actually develop two different operating systems inside of themselves. Psychologically speaking, we can think of them as their survival self and the authentic self. Their survival self develops when we have to adapt to things like stress, chaos, criticism, unpredictable environments. This version of you learns things like stay quiet, be perfect, don't upset anyone, hide emotions, stay hyper aware of everyone else. It's not fake, it's protective. It formed because your brain was trying to keep you safe, but underneath that survival identity is something else, your authentic self. The part of you that has curiosity, creativity, real emotions, opinions, preferences, dreams. The authentic self is who you were before survival became the priority. So when people say they feel like two different people, what they're often experiencing is the conflict between survival patterns and authentic identity. So when stress or trauma happens repeatedly, the brain sometimes organizes experiences into different emotional compartments, which we've discussed. Remember, we had this conversation about fragmentation. Psychologists call it fragmentation. Fragmentation does not mean something's wrong. It means that your brain learned to separate experiences so you could keep functioning. For an example, one part of you might carry confidence, productivity, competence. Another part of you might carry fear, shame, emotional wounds, childhood memories. So you may notice at work you feel strong and capable, but in relationships or emotional situations you suddenly feel small, insecure, or overwhelmed. It can feel confusing. Like, why did I react like this? That doesn't feel like me, but both parts are really you. They simply form during different periods of your life. I want you to remember that. So emotional triggers, which we will discuss further. Your brain constantly scans for signals that remind it of past experiences. When something triggers an emotional memory, the nervous system can activate the older protective version of you. This is why people sometimes say, I felt like a kid again. In that moment, your brain isn't responding only to the present situation, it's responding to past emotional patterns. The nervous system shifts from calm regulation into survival mode, which we've discussed on several occasions. And the survival step is, it steps in. It's not a weakness. It's the nervous system trying to protect you based on previous learning. So for many people who grow up in chaos or emotional complex environments, identity development gets interrupted. So instead of exploring questions like, who am I? What do I like? What do I want? The brain's busy asking different questions. How do I stay safe here? So parts of identity become shaped by adaptation rather than self-discovery. Later in life, when things become calmer, people start noticing something strange. They don't fully know who they are. It creates a feeling of like being split between the person who became, who had to survive and the person that you're still discovering. So the goal is not to eliminate the one version of yourself, but both parts formed for a reason and a reaction. So the goal here is integration, which we've discussed previous, and we're graduating from this segment. So integration, just a little bit of a refresher. Integration means understanding that your survival self protected you, but it does not have to run your life forever. Healing often involves recognizing emotional triggers, understanding childhood adaptations, learning nervous system regulation, reconnecting with authentic identity. Over time, those separate pieces begin to work together instead of against each other. And something powerful happens. You stop feeling like two different people. You begin feeling like one complete person with a full story. So here's another acronym that you can use if you want to call it, if you want to utilize it, if you want to memorize it. I call it SPLIT. It stands for survival self versus authentic self. P, parts of you that were formed in different environments. L, learned roles, identity adaptations. I, internal conflict and emotional switching. T, toward integration, healing, reconnection. For later reference, make sure that you download the free workbook if you want, so you can remember that. Again, S stands for survival self versus authentic self. P, parts of you that were formed in different environments. L, learned roles and identity adaptation. I, internal conflict and emotional switching. T, toward integration, healing and reconnection. You can find this free workbook and download it at unapologeticallyreborn.com. So how can we take control? The real question here, can I stop this? And the answer is you can always, learn how to control it, but you can't stop the first reaction. But you can change what happens next. So how do you do this? Catch it. In your head, something just changed. Pause. Don't react immediately. Name it. I'm starting to shut down. I'm overthinking. Redirect. Do something slightly different.
So it's not about getting it perfect.
Exactly. It's about interrupting the pattern. You're not two different people. You're one person with different versions. Different versions show up depending on what your brain thinks is happening. It's not that you've changed. It's that a different version of you stepped in when you needed it. So this is hopefully something that can enlighten some of the confusion. So this next week, we're going to discuss some triggers and projection. And that's going to lead us into a kind of a controversial, hopefully nobody gets offended, but a very interesting topic that I'm kind of sort of looking forward to, which is why is it sometimes, it happens with men, but why are women so mean to other women? Triggers and projection are going to help us into that conversation.
For men, it's really easy.
Oh?
But I won't say it right now. There's a future episode for men only. I can't beg on my own sex. So
This is not about begging. This is about understanding. And I think a lot of this is going to clarify some things for people like me that have always been really confused by this. Why does this occur so much? Anyways, I hope you guys are having a great week. And forgive me for being ill. We'll see you next week. I hope we were able to give you a little bit of clarification on this topic.
A little enlightenment ain't gonna kill anybody.
Thanks again for joining Unapologetically Reborn. This is where survival ends and choices begin.